Mahomes at bay.
The Tampa Bay Bucs, Super Bowl 55.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Bucs Banter Podcast. As always, we are live on Bucs Report on this fine Monday evening, here to wrap up this Sunday that was, which in this case, Week 7 of the NFL season. We got another full house here for this Victory Monday podcast, as I am joined by both of my co-hosts this evening, Scott Capron and Bo Danyard, which always warms my heart. What is up, fellas?
What's up, Paul? What's up, Bo? How are you?
We're doing good. And before we get started, I would just like to encourage any viewers and listeners, whether this is your first time or you're a longtime supporter of the show, please head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Super helpful. With that being said, the Bucs beat the Bears 38-3 yesterday to move to 6-1 on the season. We're going to talk about that, and we are also going to dive into some other storylines around the league. First things first, though, we do need to break down that game that we saw yesterday. I trust you gentlemen were watching as well. I mean, we were texting about it, so I'm pretty confident in that. Not sure if you guys heard, just today it came out that Matt Nagy announced he tested positive for COVID, and it's now being described as a small COVID-19 outbreak amongst the Bears. So that's not great, obviously, first and foremost for the health of those individuals, but also just in terms of, the Bucs just played them, so we're hoping that there was no transmission going on.
I thought you were going to say that he tested positive for being a competent human being, and I was like, oh, fake news. There's no way that was possible. But I did see the COVID thing, and Bucs concern, understandably. I don't know what the vaccination rate is amongst the Bucs, but hopefully it's good, and this isn't a huge deal. But I don't know. Is that sneaky like a good bit of news for Matt Nagy after that performance? Because, wow, not often do you see a 38-3 game in the NFL that was flattering to where the score was actually flattering to the losing team, right? Like that was just ridiculous from the start.
For sure. And I mean, you're right. It kind of takes the heat off of Nagy's performance on Sunday in a way. Like, I'm not suggesting it's a strategic acquisition of the virus and hopefully he's vaccinated. But
you know what, though, man? I'm watching Succession and I'm not ruling anything out. Any sort of behind the scenes, shady type of play, move like dropping things in the news. I'm just kidding. Obviously, Matt Nagy isn't clever enough for that. But, where do we want to go?
I think the Bucs are 100% vaccinated, right? I'm pretty sure
they are.
Yeah. Okay,
so the Bucs, I think we're good. This seems like a breakout case, right? Like I dealt with one of those in my family as well too, where, you just happens. I think Matt Nagy could be vaccinated and just happened to, come across a breakout case. But the fact that we're even talking about COVID tells you where this game was at. It was over before it began. It was honestly, last time I was on the pod, this is exactly the type of performance I wanted to see from the Bucs. It's like, just go out there, send a message in the first half. I think at one point in the broadcast, it was close to the end. It said like 0 turnovers, obviously 0 penalties. Like there's just no mistake football. Start to finish, just a complete domination by the Bucs, and that's what you want to see from this team. AB and Gronk are out, but that doesn't mean anything when you're going up against the Bears and you have Tom Brady at the helm. So, good on the Bucs.
Yeah, and I do want to just go over some of my observations. I'll start on the defensive side of the ball, then move to the offense, and as usual, chime in when you wish, gentlemen.
Yeah.
The big thing, first of all, that jumped out at me was the Bucs just dominating the trenches on both sides of the ball. I will focus on the defense right now. They only had 4 sacks to show for it, but the pressure, they were all over Justin Fields. They were all up in his business all day long. As a unit, I mean, they didn't allow a touchdown, first of all. Shades of the Super Bowl versus the Chiefs. First 3 sacks were all strip sacks. They caused 5 turnovers. So you mentioned not having any turnovers. They caused 5, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 picks. Held the Bears to 2 of 11 on third downs. It was a really nice, well-rounded effort on the defensive side of the ball. And, similar to last week, I was impressed with our cornerbacks stepping up, like based on how depleted that unit is. I'm talking Jamel Dean, D. Delaney especially, and Pierre Desir. They all played extremely well.
Did D. Delaney go down? I think D. Delaney went down, right?
He did. So did Jamel Dean. But Delaney
wow.
did do his presser after, and he said he's going to be fine. So it sounds like he just tweaked an ankle. But I mean, like, that's a guy. This is his first start of his career, and he's on his 6th team. And I thought he played great, like D. Delaney. And Brian Baldinger, I tweeted it out about an hour ago. He noticed D. Delaney as well when he was watching the tape back. So he did a little bit of a film study that I just kind of retweeted. So there's some nice clips there of D. Delaney doing work outside of just the interception. And yeah, like, I don't know if you guys heard, but Richard Sherman had filled in for our defensive backs coach. So Coach Sherm did a pretty good job, I'd say.
He got a lot of airtime. He was on a big part of the broadcast for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. They were eating that up. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
It suits him. I can see him being a coach one day.
I can see him being in a position coach too, just like really getting into the nuance and everything about coaching up a group. I can see that for sure. I'm sure he'd be super chill and just a mellow guy to work for. But no, seriously, I think he'd be a good position coach. Yeah, like you're saying, Colin, I mean, they just dominated them, and they finished plays off, like you said, only 4 sacks, but a couple strip sacks in there, forced a couple bad throws that led to interceptions. Like they just absolutely, they played solid and made big plays, and you kind of only need one of the two to have a good defensive outing, really, in the NFL, right? And then they were able to do both. I mean, obviously aided by the truly inept high school offense of the Bears, which is as great as it is, and we're on Bucs banter, and the Bucs did exactly what Bodan wanted, just go out there and stomp someone. This was more telling of the Bears just absolutely sucking than even the Bucs being dominant, which is too bad because I don't want to take anything away from Tampa. They went and beat a team by 35, and it could have been by more, but wow, was that just like a complete mismatch as soon as they stepped on the field?
Yeah, like you talked about the game plan, but I actually didn't find it that bad by the Bears. They just don't have the guys to get it done. Like they did. Okay. They did try. It's just that their defensive and offensive line just can't compete with the Bucs at all. Like the fact that they were able to run the ball even a little bit, that's more than basically any other team has on the Bucs this year.
That's fair. Okay, and then just even from a talent standpoint, though, like the Bears beat the Bucs last year. Sorry, I'm trying to set a B record there, but it's hard to imagine that that's even possible. I know roster turnover and a whole different. So anything can happen in a year in the NFL, but still, it was like men amongst boys out there. It was 3-0, and then Tampa marched down their throat. And I think like Chicago went 3-0. Tampa marched down their throat and scored 3 or 4 minutes into the game. I actually tuned in a little bit late. I just assumed Tampa got the ball to start the game. So, right, because a 4-minute drive would be pretty quick, and they actually got a stop before that, which is saying something. Yeah. So it was over. It was over as soon as the game was kicked. As soon as the ball was kicked.
There's little resistance, but I thought like their head was in the right place. I don't know. I guess not in the right place because like I couldn't believe that they were running the ball as much as they did. But yeah, good for the Bucs because they're not going to get a lot of tests during this run to the playoffs, and not that was one of them. It was just good to see the performance was all there.
Yeah, and Scott, you're not wrong. Like you are right that in terms of the Bears being very inept in a number of ways, especially just the way they scheme things up, I think to some extent. But they've also got 3 wins this season. Like they've beaten three other NFL teams. True.
Yeah.
So like you got to it's not like they're beating the Lions or the Jets. I mean, apparently
that's absolutely true. Like I can't believe that the Bears had 3 wins going in, like, you know what I mean? Like just without checking the standings before kick or whatever. It's like, oh my God, 3 wins in the NFL, this team, like, is that this season? But
and they were in tough against the Packers until late, honestly.
It's true. They hung around.
It was the win that Bodan asked for, and I was happy that they were able to give it to him. Offensively, one thing I think we probably didn't hit on enough last week, but it has been a theme, is just our offensive line continuing to absolutely dominate their opponents.
Yeah.
I
Tristan
mean,
Wirfs doing work. I loved watching that.
yeah, Bo was messaging us talking about the Tristan Wirfs Khalil Mack battle right off the bat after like the first offensive drive for the Buccaneers. I mean, I'm willing to officially declare him the best right tackle in football. Like he's just fantastic. And of course, he's given up where I have it somewhere here. Well, Wirfs admitted he was really looking forward to the rematch with Khalil Mack because Khalil Mack is the only player to have gotten a sack against Wirfs in his 27 career NFL games.
Yeah.
So pretty impressive stuff there. Yeah, he's given up 1 sack in 27 NFL games, and it was to Khalil Mack, and he was just happy. Like, he was honest saying, yeah, I was looking forward to this game because he said, I don't want to deal with the gifts anymore because, on that. So that was pretty cool. But on the other side,
I love that he's keeping track. Not that it's hard to keep track when you only have 1 sack, but I love that he's like, okay, I'm circling this one.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to be in Myles Garrett's graveyard if they ever play the Browns, right? Too, so he's staying on top of it, getting ahead of it.
Exactly. And Donovan Smith has quietly been having like a Pro Bowl, if not all pro caliber season at left tackle, which is really cool, and he's starting to get some respect for that. And anyone who's followed this team over the course of Donovan Smith's career, like that guy has taken more shit than anyone I can recall. Coming out of Penn State, he was inserted there right away. He was a 2nd-round pick, and he had some struggles in his career early on. But again, he wasn't playing with the team like this, and he just got a big deal. And to see him meeting those standards after just signing a big deal is really, really good to see. I'm happy for him. But in terms of like some actual like numbers, like according to, I just looked this up, according to Pro Football Focus, the Bucs have the lowest pressure percentage, which is, pressures allowed for every pass blocking snap in the NFL. So they're the best pass blocking unit in the NFL. Only 16% of the passing plays Brady's experiencing any sort of pressure.
God, it's just monumental when you have a quarterback that doesn't move, right? Or like that isn't a threat to move,
right?
To run, I should say. He's obviously has excellent footwork, but you know what I mean. Like he needs time, and he's getting it. That's an awesome sign.
Totally.
But he also gets the ball out like faster
than
anyone in the league.
For sure.
Too, but yeah.
Yep. Well, that's a good combo.
Exactly. And I mean, speaking of those two guys, Donovan Smith, like just our tackles here, like good friend of the show, Evan Winter, he dug something up today on Twitter. He said they are the only 2 players in the NFL with at least 317 pass blocking snaps to only give up 1 sack or less. So just another testament to kind of the consistency that those 2 tackles are playing with. And then you add like Ali Marpet is just throwing dudes around. Brandon Thorne's got stuff on Ali Marpet and Ryan Jensen every week.
Well, Jensen's constantly in the middle of stuff. Somehow he's starting stuff with the Bears. They're up like crazy, like in the first half even. And I just remember he's just still so chippy, like every play.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Love it.
Other teams hate it. Other teams hate it.
They absolutely hate it. Yeah. It's like, I'm already having a horrible day out here. Like, why are you doing this to me right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so here we go. Corey Hall, this O-line playing great. Don't get me wrong, but Brady gets the ball out in less than 2 seconds. So it's hard to tell how good they really are on pass pro. That's fair, Corey. Like, you're not wrong. But like Scott said, like, that's just great. Like, awesome.
That's
like,
the
it's
combo.
fine. We don't need to know exactly why, but that's the result. And let's not forget between if we're going to extend beyond pass protection, and obviously the Bucs are doing most of their work in the air, but Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones both averaging close to 6 yards per carry in this game. So they're getting it done in all facets.
That's a nice number for them both to be around 6. I know
it's huge.
Fournette had around 80 yards. You went over his prop easily. That's good to see for sure.
Yeah, and Rojo got a few carries. He got in there in the first half, and he could Aikman commented on it because they obviously don't watch the Bucs every week, but I mean he wanted that ball and he wanted to take advantage of it. He was hitting the hole extremely hard, like very much a different style of runner than Fournette. Fournette at this point of his career seems to be a little more patient and often what you could consider timid hitting the hole, but it's kind of just the way he runs. Like it's not like he's soft or anything. It's just a different approach. Whereas Rojo just looks like he's shot out of a cannon, especially after everything he's been dealing with over the course of his career, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else? Like Anything concern you? I mean, I don't know.
I actually there's just a trade that just came up right here pertaining to this game, actually. So Tom Brady throws his 600th TD pass.
Oh,
Mike Evans decides that there's a lucky fan that's deserving of that ball, but Tom Brady's like, okay, I need to get that one back. Did you hear what the trade was?
I saw. Yeah.
Did you see it? Okay.
Yeah.
So the guy got a different game ball, and $1,000 gift card to the team store, and the promise of a helmet, a couple jerseys, something nice in return was the quote from Brady. Is that what do you think?
We've got an update on that since then. I forget the guy's last name.
Season tickets.
Yeah. So he's got seasons for the next 2 seasons.
Nice.
Now, and I think they're pretty good seats. You definitely stole my thunder here because I wanted to talk about this because it is so crazy to think of, like, when you actually think about the potential value of that football that this gentleman so graciously returned. At the time, it was just for the first initial report was it was just $1,000 at the Bucs store.
It's crazy.
And when you start to look at some of the prices that these souvenirs are going for someone like Tom Brady, like, we're talking major money down the line potentially, even immediately.
I saw like $500K.
Yeah, like at least. I mean, we don't know, but so I mean, is that enough? Whatever he got, hell no. Like, if you're looking at it purely from a value standpoint, I mean, seeing the guy, he was doing hits on ESPN and stuff today, and he was pretty cool about it. Like, he just said he'd love to play. They were like, dude, are you sure? Like, you're not going to ask for anything else? Or it was on NFL Network, and he said, I'd like to play a round of golf with Tom Brady. So then they, like, pretty good guy. If I don't know, one hell of a loyal Bucs fan or something.
Yeah, no kidding. People that, like, I don't really get the whole sport, like, sports memorabilia to me, like, that whole market, that whole industry is kind of over my head. I can't believe how much money some of that stuff goes for. But that I don't think a lot of people would be giving that ball back, or like unless for like a pretty penny, man. Like, I think that's a pretty great package that he got, obviously. But like you guys were saying, like, that could be millions of dollars.
Yeah,
when you have a moment,
line, I think, like, the moment that it was given to him, if he would have went onto eBay from his seat and listed it, like, by the end of the game, it would have been over 300,000 for sure.
Even if you just had someone in his ear, because I think in the heat of the moment, he was so hyped up, and you're so, like, overcome with, like, how cool it is. You just got a ball from Tom Brady. They come back and say, and Tom's hoping to have the ball back. It's significant to him. Like, as a big Bucs fan, I could see you being like, oh yeah, like, of course I'll get something. Like, you're not thinking about, I don't know. I could just understand how maybe he just didn't take a moment to think about it.
And you want to be the good guy. You don't want to get booed out of your home stadium either, right?
Yeah, I think
like, imagine you're holding that ball and you're like, I'm going home with this. Like, the people around you are gonna get mobbed.
Yeah, it's easy for everyone to say that they would have held on to it, but, like, imagine it could be like a 30 for 30. This could be the Bartman of Raymond James.
Yeah.
Like, he could be the most hated.
If you got the ball, you would have hopped over the wall and tried to juke Khalil Mack as he's running back to the sideline. It's just
a younger me maybe would have tried.
I think you still have.
Yeah,
I think you would still try it. I didn't say it would work.
After a tailgate outside of Raymond James, I think you get that ball in the first quarter, you're lit.
A couple of Bud Lattes in your system. Yeah, I could see it happening.
I think I'd be more likely to try and pull a Henry Rowan-Gardner from Rookie of the Year and just throw it as far as I can, and hoping the cameras are like, "Hey, let's take a look at the replay here."
Give him Trask's jersey.
Yeah. Oh man, Rookie of the Year. Didn't see that coming up today. I know. Henry Rowan-Gardner. What are you up to now?
Yeah. Christopher Cole. Very consistent viewer of the show on Facebook, says if we run the ball like that, we will be tough to beat. You're absolutely right, Christopher. And, I think it just ties into the balance. Obviously, I like that when they're a more aggressive passing team. I don't want it to be predictable runs on first down, yada, yada, more play action, pre-snap motion, stuff we've talked about. But as long as you have a good balance and both, like, the passing success will be there. So if the Bucs are able to run the ball effectively, and the Bears have had a pretty good defense this year. I know they were missing Akeem Hicks, and that's a big loss, but they are still a serviceable defense. Like that's at least the side of that team that was, the reason they've won 3 games, as we mentioned. So, and the only other thing I wanted to hit on in terms of the offensive side of the ball was just heavy doses of Godwin and Evans. So without AB playing, I thought like we might see Tyler Johnson get a little more involved. Godwin ended up with 8 catches for 111 yards. Evans obviously 3 touchdowns. So it was time to feed the big dogs, and they both delivered on their end of that as well. Anything you guys saw offensively that you wanted to bring up?
I just like to see Godwin and Evans get involved. It's they're kind of like the OGs or whatever of that receiving corp, relative to AB and Gronk, right? But yeah, I mean, big numbers, big games for both of them. Both looked good. I think they're both good early. One of them is going to need to get hot, like in the playoffs, to just be unstoppable, just among all of the weapons that they have. I think that's what's going to happen, and I just want to see them like reaching top form during the season here, just because I feel like it's been inconsistent relative to other teams, just because of how many guys they have. I just thought it was good to see them both play really well in the same game, I guess.
And it totally depends how you view it as well. Like I think it's almost more of a testament to like their unselfishness as individuals, like Mike Evans and Godwin. Like they're so cool with one of them going off, and I like that. And then they'll have these games where Brady's like, "All right, let's remind him, Mike, that you're the dude. Like you're a 3 touchdown dude." They were trying to get him a 4th, which I love also. Yeah. So I know they weren't super successful in the second half, but I love that they were going for the jugular, and they at least wanted to drive the score up. Like we talked about them letting up in these high point differential games a couple of times this year. Excuse me. I mean, the defense held it together, but the offense continued to try to put the ball in the end zone, which I absolutely loved. So I was really.
They went for it on 4th down when it was 35-3, right on the 1 or 2. Like, sure, do it. They're playing against an NFL team. Stop us. They did, to Chicago's credit, but like I loved it.
Totally.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was just gonna ask you overall, you gotta can we get a little temperature check on the Bucs and like what do we think about the Bucs and the NFC and where you guys are at right now? How are you feeling?
I feel great. I mean, we've talked enough about the soft schedule, and I think that's something that you got to control what you can control. And they were churning out wins, ugly, but getting them done. Today's a little more of yesterday was more of a statement game. Next week we got New Orleans, who we'll see what we get from New Orleans tonight, playing at Seattle. It's going to be like a sloppy game weather-wise, but they do have a good defense, New Orleans, and I think in terms of I'm happy. Like the NFC has legit problems, like problem teams, meaning like really solid teams between the Rams, Cards, Packers, and Bucs. Like that foursome right there is
super top heavy. Yeah, the NFC just in general feels super top heavy.
Yeah, we talked about it last week, but that group of 5 is fantastic. It's like you can see any of them winning.
All one-loss teams except the Cards, who are undefeated. I didn't say the Cowboys, so thank you, Cowboys too. So I think there's a lot to be decided. I'm just happy the Bucs are taking care of business, and they showed that they can do it in a little more of dominant fashion this week. So I am feeling good. I'm feeling optimistic about that. I mean, Tom Brady also, like, he didn't even have his best game. He missed some throws, but he still threw for 4 touchdowns, and he is leading the NFL in touchdown passes, passing yards, and he is the highest rated quarterback according to Pro Football Focus. I mean, God damn, that's just stupid.
It's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And you're not people with the whole like, oh, you're just foolproof, or you got these weapons, it's easy work. I mean, fans are stupid and they hate on anyone who's not. Like, look at Mahomes right now. He's got weapons. He's got the scheme. They've got a revamped O-line and things aren't working. We're gonna get to the Chiefs. I'm just saying, like, Brady deserves credit as an individual player as well, because what he's doing is awesome. Like, just mistake-free yet still being prolific and taking risks offensively is, in of itself, really rare and very impressive
at this age, on top of everything else.
Then you throw in the fact he's like a year older than my mom. And I'm not young.
I forgot that people don't talk about that enough.
Yeah, she had me young.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
man.
but also, sorry, one last thing, Scotty. One penalty.
Go.
One penalty.
Yeah,
Great.
On the
that's
Buccaneers.
the big part. That's the big part for sure. It's
Well,
like mistake-free football. Just churn out wins every Sunday. You just let the other team know as soon as they step on the field, they can like pencil in a loss because we're not going to beat ourselves.
Yeah, they didn't have to jump offside to try to get a beat on field because they knew they were going to get that anyway. They didn't have to commit pass interference because they knew they were going to get to the ball anyway. Like it was all part of it. But they looked great, and we're going to talk a little bit about this Monday nighter and everything, but nice spot to get New Orleans next week, considering they're playing Monday night across the country. I know. Who knows how much that actually means, but I don't think it's a bad thing for sure.
No, and
on the road.
one less day rest as well.
One less day. They're not going to get back till tomorrow morning, right? Like, so, any little bit helps. I think they're the better team and they're rightfully favored by, it looks like about 5 right now in that game. But, it's at New Orleans, which is just historically troublesome, right? For the Bucs and basically anyone in that division. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And, see how the Saints look tonight, like I said. But it's almost unfair, like, depending what the weather's really like in Seattle tonight, like, you're not going to get a good read on an offense when they're playing in that shit. Just like how, like, if you were to look at them in a vacuum at the Bucs in Brady's return to Foxborough, like, that's not an accurate representation of their offensive capability by any means, right? Like, so you got to adjust for that. It should be good. And the other thing is they're well coached. I don't care who Sean Payton is running out there, even though they still have tons of talent all over the place. But he's a really smart coach, and he loves beating on the Bucs. I just know the Bucs are gonna get up for it. You got guys like Mike Evans and Levante David, JPP, who've been around long enough. They understand the rivalry. They've been getting beat down in embarrassing fashion by the New Orleans Saints for the last decade plus by Sean Payton.
Quick side. What like game window do you like best for the Bucs? It's the 4:25 Joe Buck Aikman game next week. I think that's the best one. Like, I don't know. It's almost like versus Sunday night or Monday Night Football even.
Absolutely, for a few reasons. And it's funny you bring it up because I just was like talking about my cousin John, who was over watching the game with me yesterday, and we were talking about this exact thing. You get to enjoy the 1 o'clock, so you get to see a whole bunch of games, couple different screens.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly the anticipation and excitement and alcohol kind of starts to take its toll. Come 4 o'clock, it's still early enough. The sun's out. You're having a day. Like, regardless of what's happened, you still got your Bucs game. So if you've lost your bets, if you've won your bets, doesn't matter. You got a big game to look forward to, and then you still have a night game. The Bucs haven't performed overly well since they've been adopted as the primetime darling, being league leading 5 primetime games last year. Of course, that's the Brady effect, and that's what they have this year as well. 5 primetime games. We're yet to see a dominant performance from them in that spot. And it's also just hard to wait around all day for me personally.
Yeah, that's my main thing. It's like, and then if they lose, it feels like an extra stinger on a Sunday night or something like that at the end of the weekend, and you're up late and all this. Like, how bad the Seahawks fans must have felt last Sunday after losing in overtime right at the end of Pittsburgh. Well, it's like, although I guess they're out west, so it's a little bit better. But you know what I mean. That's I like that 4 o'clock, that late 4 o'clock window as well for a game that I really want to watch or have some interest in, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah, and the poor Seahawks fans, they start getting their primetime games as soon as Russ goes down.
I know.
Back to back.
Unlucky. And
tough for NBC and ESPN having to trot out Geno Smith instead of the huddle simulator himself, Russell Wilson. So a little bit different on the Q rating.
The huddle simulator himself. Bo, I don't know if you caught our last episode.
I did.
We had some fun with that one.
I knew you guys were. I knew as soon as I saw the clip, I was like, "Oh, Scott's gonna hate that."
I did, and you're right. And we talked about it. Russell Wilson and Sierra were locked in at the Seattle Kraken game. I saw new crackheads, as they're called. So that's the celebrity group up there in the Pacific Northwest. That's fun.
Yeah.
What
Can't wait to get out for a game out there.
Oh
Where's
yeah.
Seattle?
Yeah.
You've been to Seattle, eh? You've enjoyed a game out there, Bo, right?
Yeah. I went to a Monday night game out there once for the Seahawks. I was joking. I wanted to see the Kraken play. I don't want to see them play. But yeah, on my way to I always tell people this, on my way to my seats, we had seats kind of in like the upper bowl or whatever. I saw 3 different fights on a Monday night. 3 unrelated fights, just all happening at the start of a Monday nighter.
Who's fighting in Seattle? I picture just like baristas and cannabis dispensary workers.
Yeah, people just very chill until they tell them to yell, kind of thing.
You would assume so. I think it's because it's all of Washington State, right? So it's that's their thing. Especially when I went, they didn't have any other teams, so this was it was building. You could feel it in when I got in on a Sunday. And you could feel it building. From then, everyone was talking about the game because it was their one Monday nighter against the Saints.
Yeah, I think that's sneaky the best potential football weekend, between college on Saturday and the NFL on Sunday, because the Washington tailgate looks awesome.
Yeah,
and they're in Seattle as well, right? And then you have the Seahawks is one of the better home fields. So
highly recommend. Because it's also close too. Seattle, right. Their stadium is right downtown. You can walk. I think we walked from our hotel to the stadium.
That's amazing.
Some candied salmon in the parking lot.
Yeah, that was before
almost exclusively
days.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think we're halfway through our time here. We have Pat Riley, the Tampa. Pat Riley,
big culture guy.
Pat Riley.
Yeah, he put his rings on the table.
The Tampa Bay franchise record for most career regular season passing touchdowns is 121 passes by Jameis Winston, and Brady's at 61 already, and will soon own that. Yes, we're trying to move on from the Jameis discussions, Pat, but but you're right. I mean, Jameis was able to throw touchdowns. I'm curious what the comparison would be of interceptions from Jameis in his career to Tom Brady so far as well. Regardless, always cool to see different stats as it relates to Buccaneers career rankings, because sometimes they really make your head spin.
Yeah,
I saw a lot of good stuff coming on Twitter today. I just, I do have a full-time job aside from Bucs Banter, so I wasn't able to write it all down. But thank you for sharing that one. In terms of, is there anything else you guys want to hit on regarding the Monday nighter tonight, or do you want to start discussing some of the things we saw yesterday? Because I have some items related to Sunday.
I just want to say, I think Seattle kind of has to win, and they're a dog in this game. They're at home. It's it's just so monumental if you lose a game, right? You only get to play so many of them. So big game. I guess I'm intrigued to watch. I don't know how efficient the game it'll be, or if it's going to be exciting. I'm not really sure, but I do want to watch it. I do want to tune in and see what happens.
Yeah, anything could happen tonight. I'm not going to be surprised by anything. It's super windy. It's super rainy. These are two of the worst offenses in the league as well right now. So I think they actually are 31 and 32 in the league.
Wow.
So the total's 41.5, I think. So
that's so low.
It's quite low. Yeah.
Do you guys feel like bad weather games seem to happen at a much higher rate during primetime games than they do during day games?
That's a good question.
Or is am I just so dumb because we just watched one last night? I'm
no.
I think there's a storm system going through the West Coast right now. I'm pretty sure, because everyone on Vancouver Island's preparing for the big one.
Sorry, I'm not meteorologist here. I'm more just saying generally for some reason I have the perception of rainy games at night in Foxborough or in Pittsburgh or wherever. True. But I just
it's also the primetime games stand alone too, right? So they're in their own. They're the only game going on at that time. So it's a little bit different because when there's 8 games in the morning, there could be a couple shitty weather games, but no one notices because if you're not watching, right? But that was pretty bad last night. That was pretty unplayable. But
awful.
Yeah,
sure was. Anyway, so Brian Wood watching on Facebook. Great question. You're stealing my next item here, Brian. I appreciate it. Are the Bengals for real, or did the Ravens just have a dud? I mean, I'm sure we all have thoughts. We've talked a lot about this. I think they are the real deal.
They're for real, man.
Yeah, their defense impressed me a lot. For one, you can't come away not talking about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So like Chase is, we've talked so much about him, but we're gonna do like 200+ yards receiving for Jamar Chase, shadowed by one of the best corners in football in Marlon Humphrey. Like that's the most impressive part. He's on pace for an absurd 85 receptions, 1,800 yards, and 15 touchdowns. He has 750 receiving yards through 7 games, which is the most in NFL history. So I'm throwing out these and when I look at that, I'm like, okay, sure, Collin, take a sample size. He's on pace for this. We're almost halfway through the season.
Yeah, man.
Like,
and he just looks the part. It's not crazy. Like nothing is ridiculous. Like they're both really good and they're both really good together.
It's terrifying every time he has the ball in his hands. And it's just even that little slant play where he just spins out of 3 tackles and takes it to the house. There's no more fun wide receiver in the league right now.
Yeah.
Or the comeback like on 4th down early in the game, like just showing the way he breaks off his routes. He does everything. He's so versatile. You know, he can be a deep threat. He can get tough yards over the middle. He can cut on a dime, and he can be physical at the line if he's getting press coverage. Really,
they can use him in the slot. They hit him on a couple crossers that he got the absolute maximum yardage out of. Even the one mistake he kind of made was like the ball got knocked from his hands as he was kind of going out of bounds, but Baltimore didn't recover it in bounds. It didn't even matter. They just got the ball right. Like since he just got the ball right there anyway, and that wasn't even his fault or anything. The guy made a great play, but no harm, no foul. And he was incredible. I want to here. This might be a little bit cringy, but just bear with me 1 second. I want to push back a little bit. Like he got tackled forward, and then no one was there, and then he kept running, like for that 82-yard touchdown.
Yeah,
that was sweet. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, you can't say anything bad about it because it's an 82-yard touchdown. But it's like, well, he didn't get tackled to the ground, and he got flung forward, and then he was running. So, like, not to take anything away from him, but I don't think that was strictly Jamar Chase. I basically just saw it because I saw Twitter blowing up. It's like, this guy's absolutely unbelievable. It's like, well, he's unbelievable for a lot of other things. I feel like anyone would have been in the same situation there that actually made the catch. Sorry. Does that make sense?
Of course it does. Yeah, for sure. I mean, because, he'd already shown everything that makes him great prior to that. I think it just gave him that massive chunk play, which is just kind of completing the body of work for the day. But in isolation, you're right. That play is not anything special. Like, DB's got to tackle, man. Like anyone who has DBs who can't tackle, it is
bring him
crucial.
down. Yeah,
that's why I love
like to go back to what the comment, like it is those Ravens corners and secondary in general, they do tackle. Like they normally do tackle. And also like I give them props for that play because I'm just like a lot of other wide receivers go down from that because they get flung around, they're disoriented. He's just so like the amount of awareness you have to like go through that like with 3 guys wrapped all over you and still get up and be like, oh, I'm gonna sprint still. And like he's not even thinking about it. Like it's up there.
His feel for the game and for bodies around him is one of those. It's like a quarterback in the pocket, right? It's like being aware, and he has a feel for that. And that leads perfectly into the discussion of Joe Burrow, because watching him yesterday, I'm so impressed with how he can feel and move in the pocket while keeping his eyes downfield. We were texting about it because early on he was under siege, man. At first, like after that first drive or two, I was like, oh shit, like Burrow's in trouble. Like we were, we all thought that the Bengals would hang tough and have a shot in that game. Cap, we talked about that last episode that we finished off talking about. You were looking ahead, talking about how fun that game will be, and you were right. But seeing that early, I was like, oh shit, man, this O-line is not going to keep Burrow upright enough to take advantage of these weapons. I couldn't believe it. Some of the throws he was just getting out, but he's tough as nails and he's very cerebral in there. Body, space, whatever you want to call it, the Tom Brady thing. And he doesn't just bail out, even though he's capable of running.
It feels like Russell Wilson light at times, right? Like his eyes stay downfield no matter like through all the chaos around him. And earlier in the season, he's been not great against pressure. And the Ravens, historically, one of the most blitz heavy defenses in the league. I think if you're just looking at those two stats, you'd be like, well, this doesn't add up. Like how are they going to keep this going? How are the Bengals going to win this game if their quarterback's going to be in the ground this often? And he was in the ground quite a bit, but he's still just keeping his eyes downfield, making quick decisions, and just performing better under pressure than we've seen him this entire season. So yeah, hats off to Burrow. He was unreal yesterday.
They're my favorite.
Sorry, Colin. He just never flustered with all that happening. He doesn't take off and run like you said, just because he's keeping his eyes down the field. The receivers are good. Like, what a trio that is. And then mix in CJ Uzoma, who looks unbelievable.
Yeah, he's unreal.
Right? So, I mean, they have the guys for him. He has the perfect demeanor combined with arm strength and toughness. I mean, that was so impressive. And they just beat him down. They absolutely beat them down. And look at the wins that Baltimore had piled up too, right? And since he goes in and beats them after all that, that's, first of all, it also speaks to just how week to week this league is, right? Like Baltimore looked unbeatable last week against the Chargers, and then next week at home get beat by basically the same amount, right? So it totally depends. But since he's great, they're definitely a playoff contender.
I also think Baltimore is that team. That's the epitome of anything in the NFL. Just like we talked about them almost losing to the Lions, their week 1 game. They are just, sometimes they look like the best team in the NFL, and then sometimes you're just like, what are they doing? So they're a tough team to read, man. They're a tough team to predict.
They don't have that, they can't be I think when the Chiefs were good, let's just say, they had that switch, right? Where you're just like, okay, maybe they weren't up at the first 2 quarters of this game, but they can turn on the switch and just blow people out. The Ravens can, they'll start to pour it on and they don't stop pouring. But it seems like if they're not up for a game, they're just they have a certain amount of drives in them, and they're just yeah, we don't I don't have anything left here. Either the defense is going to get us there or they're not. And the defense couldn't get them there last night, or yesterday. Yeah. So. Yeah.
For sure. This one was more about Cincy than Baltimore to me. I still like Baltimore, but
I still love Baltimore.
Yeah, it just elevates Cincinnati. They have to be taken for real. Yeah, for sure.
Chase was the right pick, that's for sure. Jamar Chase, man. Lots of people thinking they needed to address the O-line first. No. If you got a special talent, regardless of position, unless it's a running back, because Scott Capron's listening, you take that player. Especially if they have a rapport with your young star quarterback. So they made the right call there.
So great point. I wonder, honestly, I wonder if that's Herbert instead of Burrow. I wonder if it's still the same thought process to picking Chase.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think that it would be different potentially. We don't know, but that's a great thing to bring up, Scotty.
Yeah, just because
Herbert on the Bengals.
Yeah, just because does the chemistry aspect that was so tangible and we had all seen between Burrow and Chase, was that enough to be no, the book says take the tackle here, but we're going to have this dynamic combo. We've seen it. Do we just do it? Was that enough to put that pick over the top? That'd be interesting to actually hear.
I think their history, you can't write that off, because you have to imagine Joe Burrow was in that room pounding the table. Exactly what we were saying during the draft coverage. I can't see him being no, we should get Penei Sewell. It would be weird.
We were pounding the table for Jamar Chase. How could Joe Burrow not be?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to unveil those receipts.
How insane is it that they were he's at LSU at the same time as Justin Jefferson and Joe Burrow. That is an NFL offense coming into your stadium.
Yeah, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Randy Moss's son, and it's only because Burrow didn't beat out Dwayne Haskins to win the Ohio State job. So that's why that's why he transferred.
Yeah.
Scott's favorite subplot of it all is Ohio State. I'm not calling you I'm saying. Come on, you like that?
Yeah. Well, but it's not like Haskins was good. It's not
I know.
Urban Meyer made a terrible decision and they were like left with some brutal quarterback. Like Haskins was still a good college quarterback, but hey, only one guy can play. So
no, you got it. You got it, Scott. You got it, Scott. And next time that I'm talking about Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, I'll start by saying, imagine if they chose they didn't choose Dwayne Haskins. We never would have saw it.
Yeah.
It's
Somehow
true.
Scott switches Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase to talking about Urban Meyer. I'm just surprised you didn't call him Herb this time.
And here's the other thing about Herb, okay? I heard that restaurant isn't even that good. And like brutal apps, terrible service, and he's doing that. Come on, man. Figure it out.
So, Bo, you mentioned the Kansas City Chiefs. I got to ask, boys, did Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers break the Kansas City Chiefs? Because that is the last time. Up until that game, they looked like the present and future of the NFL, of NFL offenses as we know it. And then they dealt with Todd Bowles and his vicious attacking scheme. They addressed their offensive line. What is going on, boys? An embarrassing performance on both sides of the ball for them losing to the Titans on a short week. The Titans, really weak pass defense, down DBs on what is already a very unimpressive arsenal of pass defenders. KC's 3-4, tied for last place in the AFC West division. I want your thoughts. Where are we at? One of you.
We can't trust them anymore, right? Like I'll be quick with this, Scott, because I know you probably got a lot of thoughts on this, because one of the bread and butter of NFL in-game betting was, the Chiefs are down. Why don't we just bet on them money line? It's a plus number all of a sudden, and
Scott
I think even this weekend, I think boom, you hit us, and we're just like, hey, the Chiefs are plus like 280 or something like that. And I was like, I'm not touching that. Like, I didn't even respond to it. Like, they don't look good.
And you know what, man? That was a real turning point for me from a gambling perspective, because I saw it and I was looking at it, and no part of me while watching that game wanted to hit that.
No.
And so that's interesting wording there. Sorry to my wife and child out on the other side of the door.
Like,
there.
even if you were wasted at 3 a.m., you were just,
no,
I'm not touching that.
I'm not taking that. I'm not taking the cheese home, even if, just not happening.
Like,
in all
reality,
reality,
even on yet
good.
or something.
Yeah, exactly. But seriously, I that was telling to me to not just automatically get after that bet, right? And they're not trustworthy. I believe that they'll figure it out and get into the playoffs and probably become a threat. But to just say for sure that that's going to happen, or, don't worry, no, man. Like, they got dismantled by the Bills, dismantled by the Titans, choked one away against the Ravens stupidly. Like, and they got beat by the Chargers. Now, granted, all good teams, but you got to beat those teams. Look at what Tampa did to Chicago. Look what Arizona's doing to everyone, right? Like, I believe that they'll figure it out, but
like schedule defensively of like opposing defenses going into that game, going into the Tennessee game. But I think once they hit Washington, everyone was just like, looking at their schedule and be like, they're going to reel off some wins. And the first half in Washington didn't look good. They ended up pulling that one out, like 22 unanswered points or something like that in the second half. But Tennessee is before that Buffalo game, I would have said they're not a good team, and the Chiefs should roll. And they've got the Giants this week, and I think they've got the Giants on Monday night. And it's just like, I can't confidently take the Chiefs. Definitely not the points.
No.
And even money line, I'm just like, is it worth the risk, right?
They better win. They better win the freaking game. I know the Giants at least showed a heartbeat this week, but I get what you're saying, though. Obviously, they're not trustworthy. They are. Someone's up.
They're like the opposite of, like, this is like the nightmare, like, of the opposite of the Bucs, whereas like their schedule is so hard. Like, if you just look at it, they get the Giants, but then they got the Packers at home on Sunday. They got the Raiders, go to Las Vegas to play the Raiders, a night game on Sunday. Then they're in Dallas, or Dallas comes to them. Like,
there you go.
Their schedule gets really, really tough. And then like the AFC West is like, you're gonna have tough games every time you play them. Bengals
Yeah.
late. That's not a gimme either, unless the Bengals can sit everyone in week 17 for some reason.
Oh, man.
They've got a really, really tough schedule.
They'll be on the road versus the Chargers. Not like
as
they don't have the craziest home field advantage, but it's not playing at Arrowhead.
Yeah.
No.
Couple things. They were that bet you're alluding to when I mentioned the line, Bo, it wasn't even money line at that point. It was a second quarter, and I was like, the Chiefs are plus 15.5 right now. And the point is none of us were interested. And Scott, that's kind of like even more of a sign of your maturity, Scott, than having a wife and kid in the next room is not you, and more of a general observation, I think, for betting philosophy.
You hear that, Dad? No, I'm just kidding.
is to not be stubborn. Like the Chiefs were a moneymaker for you on in-game Scott spots, and to know like, okay, I can't just blindly trust this forever. Like, you have to be able to adapt on the fly. I think that's a mature betting philosophy.
Thank you, man. It took some years, but here we are.
Yeah, I'm working on that one. The not being super stubborn. Then again, I stopped betting Devin White over tackles since no one runs a football against the Bucs.
That's your version. We got rid of that early.
I bet it once this year, maybe twice if you include a little sprinkle in a bet builder. But anyhow, so shifting back to the NFC, we mentioned it earlier. I just wanted to once more mention or at least bring up the opportunity to discuss or take this conversation any which way. But the Rams, Cards, Packers, Cowboys, who were on a bye, but they're all handling business versus inferior teams. So I'm happy with the Bucs dominating the Bears. Well, all those teams are doing the same thing. I know the Rams had a little bit of a scare early on, but not really. They ended up handling their business.
It was a sweat.
Shout out to the Lions. Shout out to Kneecap and Dan Campbell for pulling out all the stops. Seriously, like they did what you had to do to try to win a game as a 15-point underdog. And there's still obvious issues. The main one rhymes with Smearage Schmoff, being on their roster. But they tried. They gave the Rams everything they could handle, and that was an entertaining game.
Especially early on, they tried to punch them in the mouth as hard as they possibly could. So
I like how they busted out those stops, like the tricky shit. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. They're in the perfect position too. They're playing hard, but when they, I work with a Lions fan, my boss actually technically, and he's like loving it. They're showing some toughness. They're like showing some grit, but then they end up losing, and he's totally good with it. And then I told him, well, don't be so too quick, because if you look at the quarterback class entering the draft next year, it is nothing like we saw this year or last year.
That's rough.
Or the year before. You'll be getting a defensive
who are the
end.
top? Who's at the top?
Corral
from Ole Miss.
Yeah, we got the guy from Pittsburgh.
Wasn't Spencer Rattler at the top for a while, and then he lost his job as well?
Well, he doesn't play anymore.
Yeah. And then you got Malik Willis from Liberty, who's kind of the Trey Lance of this year in terms of like a guy who is tougher to evaluate, and he does lots of cool things. But
what about the Nevada quarterback? It's like Cole Strong or something like that. Have you read anything about him?
I know he's a player, but I haven't I don't know anything about him where I could offer any sort of opinion.
Based on name alone, that's a first rounder.
Well,
like almost 100%.
I was watching the Nevada Fresno State game on Saturday night, and I hadn't seen either team play this year. He's really good. Interesting to see if he comes out, but
Yeah, I haven't seen him. And then the other name is Sam Howell at North Carolina. He's had an underwhelming performance so far, but coming into this year, he was considered a talent.
But you're right. None of those guys are setting any franchises on fire. I would say that's pretty bleak, actually.
Yeah, Thibodeau, the edge rusher for Oregon, may have established himself as the clear-cut number one pick at this point, dominating UCLA.
That was he was unbelievable.
Yeah. One thing, just to go back to those three teams, I just saw the Packers lost Devontae Adams to COVID-19. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, that line, man. You can't say they lost him to COVID-19.
What do you? Sorry, I forgot that it's like he actually kills people. But
I know
he's not going to be playing football because of COVID-19.
That's
the Packers lost him, not the world.
The line moved from 3.5 to 6.
We knew what you meant, buddy. We knew what you meant. I was just being a little virus myself.
What a jokester, eh? What a jokester!
Jumping
this guy
all over
is.
me.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, last thing I want to hit on, because we're timing this pretty well, if I do say so myself. We got 5 minutes left. NFL trade deadline is fast approaching. What is it, on like Friday or something, Bo? I feel like
November 2nd.
November 2nd. Okay, so we still got
next Tuesday.
We got a little bit of time, but this is like trades are going to start happening, right? Like I think there's one today. Flacco's on the Eagles now. He's on the Eagles. No, he's on the Jets.
The Jets.
Yeah.
Conditional pick.
Speaking of the trade deadline, things have moved quickly for our Carolina Panthers, Collin, and your son Sam Darnold. Wow, they are now 2 feet into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. It looks like. Wouldn't have guessed that 3 weeks ago, right? When they looked decent.
No,
they look like a different team now, though, as well.
Well, yeah,
that team is
no McCaffrey,
that offense.
understandably, yeah.
But
even
but
still,
as much as I don't know if McCaffrey's worth like 20 points, right? Like they were so bad yesterday, like insanely bad yesterday. Even the play, like it wasn't even so much the play calling; it's just they couldn't get anything going.
That was as bad as an offense can look. Truly,
yeah.
That was incredible. As someone who had the Panthers, it was wow, easy.
I had them too. I bailed on it. I was one of the few cash outs that I had this year that I'm just like, it's breaking all my rules, but like I have to get out of this.
Get off.
There's no way.
Speaking of rules and cash outs, I cashed out my Matt Rule Coach of the Year bet at halftime.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah. That's
call.
Done.
The segue or the actual cash out? What?
No,
both.
Candidacy.
Honestly.
Yeah, had to do it. I was like, all right, I'm hopping off this boat right now. And
even if for some reason they do end up with Deshaun Watson, which I would love to see, he's not saving the Coach of the Year candidate for Matt Rule.
Because he'll just get all the credit. So
exactly.
And like, I can vividly remember the conversation. I think I don't know if it was all three of us on the pod, but I think it was just Cap and I. We were talking about Darnold, and all we were saying was, like, we weren't saying it's all because of Sam Darnold that I think the Panthers are going to be good. It's because they're building a really nice roster all over the field, and that's 100% true. And I think they've shown that, especially on the defensive side. It was more that Sam Darnold was being written off unfairly without having a chance to prove himself, and he's looked good at points. We'll see if they can turn it around with him at the helm. But them being rumored for Deshaun Watson is interesting. I personally would not want my team to invest in a player with such a uncertain future. From a legal perspective, it seems insane to give up. Like, if they're going to give him away for pennies, sure, take a shot at it. But like, why would you invest valuable draft capital? Like, that's gold in the NFL for a guy who, for all intents and purposes, could be behind bars at a point. Like, we don't know where this is headed.
Yeah, true.
And I feel compelled to mention just the moral aspect of trading. But I mean, hey, NFL teams have added some unsavory guys to rosters before. I just wanted to get that out there officially for our stance.
I say it. I'm like all for the Deshaun Watson thing as like a innocent until proven guilty type of standpoint. But yeah, it is. It's a tough trade to make for any team. When I'm looking at Carolina, I'm just like, you guys could be good this year if you have Deshaun Watson, like immediately. So I don't know. I would still like to see it happen, but I can see why, if you're a Panthers fan, you're probably a bit nervous about it.
Yeah, it would be entertaining because he's such a gift on the field. So I think just as a football fan, it would be crazy to see him in a new uniform and finally get some resolution to this. Really quick, we are like under a minute to go here. Nick Walker on YouTube says the Lions went out of their shield against the Rams. I thought the Bears would have scrapped the same way against the Bucs. I think a lot of people did, Nick. And Nick goes on to say, I feel that the Bears' uninspiring coaching handicapped them. You are bang on, buddy. Matt Nagy's got to go. Yeah, well said.
And there you go. The Lions are just as bad as the Bears, if not worse. And they played for their guy, and they tried to win. And the Bears showed none of that in a similar situation against the Bucs. So, yeah, great comment, Nick.
Yeah, poor Justin Fields, poor Allen Robinson. Get Matt Nagy out of there. Go Buccaneers. Big win. We're traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. So all you Bucs fans, go scout out the New Orleans Saints tonight as they take on the Seattle Seahawks for Monday Night Football. And until next time, God bless.
Peace.